But when I look in the mirror, my reflection doesn't always match how I feel inside.
Stephanie Seymour had it all: beauty, fame, and love from a rock star. But behind the flashing cameras and wild parties, her perfect life was slowly falling apart. Was the rock star lifestyle too much for a supermodel to handle? What really happened when the lights went out? Join us as we uncover how the rock star lifestyle destroyed supermodel Stephanie Seymour. When fame becomes the enemy. By the mid-1990s, Stephanie Seymour appeared to have it all: beauty, success, money, and the kind of global fame that only a handful of women on Earth could match. She graced magazine covers, was the face of iconic fashion houses, and walked the most prestigious runways. Yet behind the allure of lights, cameras, and luxury, her life had quietly spiraled into a chaotic storm, fueled not just by the rock stars she loved, but by the demands and damage of fame itself. Stephanie Seymour became a sensation in the fashion world in an era where supermodels weren't just faces, they were brands. Her beauty was undeniable, and early on, it served as her passport into exclusive spaces. But beauty, while empowering on the surface, also became her curse. Every room she walked into had already decided who she was. The girl behind the face rarely had room to exist. By the time she reached the peak of her career, Stephanie's identity had become entangled with public expectation. She was supposed to be wild, alluring, untouchable, a living fantasy. But this role required sacrifices, emotional discipline, silence in the face of misconduct, and the erasure of flaws. In private, she often felt like a stranger in her own skin, caught in a performance that never ended. The line between who she was and who people wanted her to be blurred until it nearly disappeared. Even as she rose to the top, Stephanie was always at risk of being replaced. The fashion industry has never been kind to women who age, gain weight, show weakness, or fall out of line. She was constantly aware of the ticking clock, the newer models, and the shifting standards of relevance. This pressure manifested in unhealthy ways: diet pills, fasting, obsessive fitness routines. Stephanie's attempts to maintain the perfect body became an invisible war. She reportedly battled with disordered eating habits, a problem she never publicly confirmed, but which friends and insiders hinted at during the height of her modeling years. She did not want to be thin. She needed to be perfect. Not for herself, but for a world that expected it of her. When Stephanie dated bad boys and rock stars, tabloids loved it. When she fell apart emotionally, those same tabloids turned her into a cautionary tale. Public validation became addictive, and with every photo shoot, paparazzi snapshot, or provocative romance, she fed the machine, unaware that it was feeding on her too. There's a saying in the industry: some stars don't seek peace because chaos is all they know. Stephanie's pattern of entangling herself with troubled, emotionally volatile men wasn't an accident. It was a symptom of deeper wounds. She didn't just fall for rock stars like Axl Rose or involve herself in tumultuous relationships because of fame. These men represented what she had come to normalize: instability. Raised in a strict and often emotionally strained household, Stephanie craved love but didn't recognize it when it was healthy. What felt like passion was often controlled. What she mistook for intensity was often manipulation. The fights, the makeups, the violent breakdowns, they were not isolated incidents but echoes of a familiar pattern she didn't know how to escape. Her relationship with Axl Rose was famously stormy. Stephanie is asked about how she feels working with her boyfriend. 052 to 102.
To you.
What's it like working with your boyfriend?
It certainly makes things a lot nicer. I mean, I'm a lot happier when he's around. I think he's a lot happier when I'm...
Behind closed doors, there were alleged episodes of violence, substance misuse, and manipulation. The public saw the glossy pictures, rock royalty and runway queen, but insiders saw a young woman lost in a cycle of toxicity. And when that relationship ended, Stephanie didn't rest. She moved on to other emotionally complicated men, still carrying the belief that love had to be dangerous to be real. Stephanie's fame spanned multiple eras. She had to evolve, from the bombshell of the early 90s to the more polished editorial muse of the late 90s and early 2000s. Reinvention wasn't optional, it was survival. But constant reinvention meant constant disconnection from self. Each new image required a shedding of the last. and that fragmentation made it hard for Stephanie to build a solid identity outside the public gaze. In interviews, her tone often shifted, sometimes playful, sometimes guarded, always slightly performative. She had learned not to trust journalists, not to reveal too much, but even in her silence, the pain was palpable. The real Stephanie, according to some who knew her, was deeply sensitive, fiercely loyal, and at times heartbreakingly insecure. But the world didn't want vulnerability. It wanted perfection. This constant emotional juggling act made genuine recovery difficult. She couldn't just walk away from fame. Her looks were her currency. Her relationships were her storyline. And the idea of walking away from it all, reinventing herself without the approval of the public, felt like erasure. So she stayed, and the lifestyle continued to chip away at her peace. But before all these, how did Stephanie rise from being a young girl from San Diego to being a supermodel in Florida? From small contests to global covers. Let's rewind the clock to a time when the world hadn't yet heard the name Stephanie Seymour. Her story didn't begin with flashing cameras or agents crowding around with contracts. There was no sudden discovery in a glamorous setting. Instead, there was quiet determination, early ambition, and a young girl who believed she could stand out. Stephanie was born in July 1968 in sunny San Diego, California. But it wasn't California that shaped her modeling dreams. It was Florida, where she grew up and began laying the bricks of her future. At just 14 years old, she dove headfirst into the modeling world, not by accident, but by chasing it. She started entering local modeling contests, small events that seemed insignificant at the time, but turned out to be her training ground. At 15, Stephanie entered the very first elite model look competition in 1983. She didn't win, but that didn't stop her. Even without the title, she stood out. Her tall frame, deep brown hair, and striking features immediately caught the attention of important people in the modeling world. There was something undeniably unique about her. She didn't fit the mold, and she didn't want to. In an era that adored ultra-thin bodies and angular features, Stephanie's curves were bold and her presence couldn't be ignored. She had a natural confidence that set her apart. Her beauty wasn't just on her face. It was in the way she carried herself, the way she looked straight into the camera without fear. She wasn't trying to blend in, she wanted to be unforgettable. Behind the rising star, though, was a very complicated situation. At 14, Stephanie began a controversial relationship with John Casablancas, the founder of Elite Model Management. He was 42 and married. Despite the huge age gap and the concerns it raised, the relationship became a defining part of her early modeling years. They even lived together for some time during the mid-1980s. While this relationship opened doors in the modeling industry, it also came at a great personal cost. It set the tone for the kind of fast adult world Stephanie was thrown into while still a child. By 16, Stephanie was already working regularly. She did small jobs, local newspapers, boutiques, and advertisements across Florida. These gigs weren't glamorous, but they gave her something most young models never get: real experience. She learned how to pose, how to work with different photographers, and how to bring her personality into every shot. These moments, far away from the glamour of Paris and Milan, were where she learned to survive in a ruthless industry. Then came 1988, a breakthrough year. Stephanie landed not one, but two major modeling milestones. She was featured in the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, a major accomplishment that exposed her to a wide audience. That same year, she also appeared on the cover of Vogue, shot by the legendary Richard Avedon. This wasn't just a magazine cover, it was her official entry into the world of high fashion. The doors of the elite modeling world began swinging open, and Stephanie didn't hesitate to step inside. The late 1980s and early 1990s were a golden age for supermodels. Stephanie made sure she wasn't just part of it, she made sure she stood out. Magazines like Vogue, LA, and Harper's Bazaar couldn't get enough of her. Her campaigns for brands like Versace brought her into a global spotlight. Avedon, who worked with the best of the best, saw something special in Stephanie. He believed she had the kind of beauty and intelligence that could take her anywhere, and he wasn't wrong. What made Stephanie different from other top models was her ability to do both high fashion and commercial work. She was elegant enough for couture editorials and hot enough for lingerie catalogs. She became one of the first Victoria's Secret angels at a time when that role held real power. She brought her full energy into every photo shoot, using her body, face, and emotions to tell a story in a single frame. Then came the boldest move of all, Playboy. Stephanie appeared in the magazine not once, but twice, in March 1991 and again in February 1913. Many high fashion models would have stayed far away from nude shoots, fearing it might harm their editorial careers. But Stephanie didn't follow those rules. She created her own path. She wasn't afraid to mix the bold with the beautiful. Her appearances in Playboy weren't the end of her fashion journey, they were part of it. She showed that a model could be both elegant and daring. By the early 1990s, Stephanie had fully earned her place among the most iconic supermodels of the era. She stood shoulder to shoulder with names like Cindy Crawford, Naomi Campbell, Christy Turlington, Claudia Schiffer, and Linda Evangelista. These women weren't just fashion stars, they were global celebrities. They walked the world's biggest runways, starred in music videos, appeared in commercials, and became the faces of countless major brands. They represented a powerful new era where models were more than just beautiful, they were influential. Stephanie, however, had something even more distinct, a figure that broke the rules. While the fashion world moved toward a much skinnier look, especially with the arrival of the heroin chic trend made famous by Kate Moss, Stephanie stayed true to herself. She didn't chase trends. Her curves, hourglass figure, and strong features made her unforgettable. Designers didn't just want her to wear their clothes, they wanted her to bring their fantasies to life. During the grunge movement, when fashion seemed to favor messy hair and loose flannel shirts, Stephanie remained a vision of glam. Her long, styled hair, striking eyes, and confident walk made her one of the most powerful presences on any runway. She brought energy to her photo shoots and excitement to the runway. She didn't just wear clothes, she transformed them. She walked for top fashion houses in Paris, Milan, and New York. Designers like Valentino and Dior wanted her. Versace saw her as a muse. With every campaign, Stephanie reinforced her place in the fashion world as someone who could sell more than clothing. She sold an image, a dream. By the mid-1990s, Stephanie was one of the highest-paid models in the world. She had secured major contracts, including a huge deal with L'Oreal Cosmetics. That teenage girl who once modeled for small stores in Florida was now an international star. Her name was known in homes around the world, her photos on billboards, in magazines, and on television screens. She was living the dream that so many young girls imagined, but few achieved. Behind the bright lights and stunning photos, though, there remained a deeper truth. Stephanie had worked for every bit of her success, from entering small contests to walking for global fashion giants, from local shoots to major ad campaigns. Her journey was filled with both challenges and triumphs. She never waited for fame to find her. She chased it, worked for it, and shaped it into something truly her own. But even though the fame was sweet at last, her personal life wasn't. Stephanie Seymour journey through love, loss, and lawsuits. Stephanie Seymour's story isn't just about beauty, modeling, and success. It's about heartbreak, passion, motherhood, and resilience. Behind every glamorous photo and headline was a woman whose personal life was as bold, complex, and unforgettable as her rise through the fashion world. From high-profile romances to personal tragedies, Stephanie lived her life like a true icon. Never quietly, never halfway. As her modeling career soared to new heights, her private life took its own sharp turns. In her early 20s, she entered her first marriage. She wed guitarist Tommy Andrews at the age of 20. The union didn't last long, about a year, but it brought something deeply meaningful into her life. Her first child, a son named Dylan, born in 1990. While the marriage faded, her role as a mother remained strong and central in her life moving forward. Then came the chapter that would seal her place in pop culture history. Stephanie entered a relationship that no one could ignore. Her romance with Axl Rose, the lead singer of Guns N' Roses. He wasn't just any musician. At the time, he was one of the most famous and unpredictable rock stars in the world. Known for his wild energy, explosive concerts, and raw emotion, Axl Rose was at the peak of his fame when he and Stephanie began dating in 1991. The relationship quickly captured the media's attention. A supermodel and a rock legend together was the perfect storm for magazine covers, paparazzi chases, and tabloid drama. But this wasn't just a public relationship. It became part of music history. Stephanie talks about her perfect relationship with the rock legend.
Verbally, or we've never had a disagreement.
Wow, that's heavy. Seriously, I mean, I watch you guys and you both look so vicious in that fight.
Stephanie appeared in 2 of Guns N' Roses' most legendary music videos. In Don't Cry, she portrayed Axl's love interest. It was a powerful pairing on screen that mirrored their real connection. But it was November Rain that truly immortalized her in music video history. The video played like a short film. Stephanie, wearing a dramatic wedding gown, walked down the aisle to marry Axl in a grand ceremony that turned tragic. The 9-minute epic told a tale of love and loss, and Stephanie's intense performance made it unforgettable. The visuals, the emotion, and her chemistry with Axl helped make the video a classic. It went on to be watched over 1 billion times, leaving an indelible mark on both music and fashion culture. Their off-screen love seemed just as intense. They got engaged, and for a while, it looked like they might actually become a permanent couple. But their relationship was as turbulent as it was passionate. It was filled with arguments, reconciliations, and drama that spilled into the public eye. By 1993, things had reached a breaking point. Their breakup wasn't quiet or peaceful. It was loud, messy, and made for the headlines. Axl accused Stephanie of stealing jewelry and physically assaulting him. She responded with a lawsuit of her own, alleging that he had been abusive.
Not if I could think it was prior. I don't know.
The situation escalated further when Stephanie brought in Axl's former wife to testify. The lawsuits and counterclaims kept the press busy for months. Eventually, they settled out of court, but the scars from that relationship remained. Being with Axl had exposed Stephanie to the chaotic world of rock stardom. Tour buses, after parties, and constant media attention. Her life became a whirlwind of highs and lows. For a while, they were seen as the couple that defined their era, dramatic and magnetic. But in the end, their love burned out just as quickly as it had caught fire. After that intense chapter, Stephanie's life shifted in an entirely different direction. Enter Peter Brant, a billionaire businessman, art collector, and publisher. He was older, established, and deeply embedded in the world of high society. When they got together in 1993, it caused quite a stir. Peter was still married at the time, and the news of his romance with a supermodel spread quickly through society circles. Despite the whispers, Stephanie didn't let outside opinions slow her down. Later that year, she gave birth to their first son, Peter Brant II. The following summer, in July 1995, Stephanie and Peter got married in Paris.
And don't try to count her money, she has too much. She married a billionaire and went on and had a really nice life. But now she's talking about these young girls and it...
The wedding was extravagant, filled with luxury, and marked a new chapter in Stephanie's life. She had moved from the backstage chaos of rock concerts to the refined halls of art museums and designer galas. The couple made their home on a vast estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. The property covered over 300 acres and included polo fields and priceless artworks by legends like Andy Warhol. Stephanie was now living in a world of elegance and wealth, far removed from her rock and roll past. Together, they had 2 more children, Harry in 1996 and Lily Margaret in 2004. Their estate wasn't just beautiful. It was almost like living in a private art museum. Stephanie adjusted to this new life with remarkable ease. She stepped into the world of elite gatherings and art auctions, hosting events and raising her children. While she continued modeling on a smaller scale, her focus shifted to family. She left behind the runway for school events, holidays at home, and a quieter lifestyle. But peace didn't last forever. In 2009, after nearly 15 years of marriage, Stephanie filed for divorce from Peter. The split quickly turned ugly. Legal documents revealed bitter accusations from both sides. Peter claimed that Stephanie had a substance misuse problem and tried to force her into treatment. Stephanie countered with claims of emotional mistreatment and even filed for a restraining order. The tensions spilled over into public confrontations. There was even an incident where a security guard allegedly pushed Stephanie during an argument. She found a tracking device under her car and accused Peter of spying on her. The details painted a picture of a deeply broken relationship. At one point, Peter was ordered to pay over $250,000 a month in support. Then, unexpectedly, they reconciled. In 2010, they appeared in court holding hands and asked for the divorce to be withdrawn. Against all odds, they decided to stay together. It wasn't easy, but they believed in saving what they had built. Since then, they have remained together, moving forward as a family. Despite this period of healing, more challenges followed. followed. In 2011, Stephanie found herself in a strange media storm. Photos surfaced of her on a beach with her son, Peter Jr. The pictures showed an affectionate hug that some people online misinterpreted. The media coverage quickly became invasive. Peter Jr. responded to the rumors, explaining that he and his mother were simply close and loving, and that the photos were taken completely out of context. His defense helped stop the story before it spiraled out of control. Later in 2016, Stephanie faced a different kind of backlash. When asked about newer models like Kendall Jenner and Gigi Hadid, she made a joking comment that didn't land well.
Really super models. They are, bitches of the moment.
In the age of social media, her words were quickly shared, and many accused her of being dismissive and harsh. Kendall responded publicly, calling Stephanie out for being negative. Stephanie later apologized, making it clear that she respected the new generation of models and meant no harm. That same year, Stephanie was arrested for driving under the influence after an accident in Connecticut. She appeared impaired and refused to take sobriety tests. Although the charges were later dropped after she completed a treatment program, it drew attention to deeper issues. It was a moment that suggested she was still battling private struggles. Just like many others who came up in the fashion industry during the 80s and 90s, Stephanie had spent years in a world where parties, alcohol, and wild nights were part of the culture. For many models, the pressure to maintain their image, stay thin, and be constantly available made the party lifestyle hard to resist. But Stephanie rarely spoke publicly about any personal battles with substance use. The DUI incident, however, offered a rare glimpse behind the scenes. It was clear she was dealing with real human problems that fame couldn't protect her from. Still, nothing could have prepared her for the pain she would face in 2021. In January of that year, Stephanie's son, Harry, passed away from an accidental overdose involving prescription medication. He was only 24 years old.
Son of supermodel Stephanie Seymour and publisher Peter Brant has passed away. According to a statement from his family, Harry died on Sunday, January 17th, of an accidental overdose of prescription.
Like his mother, Harry had stepped into the world of fashion. He modeled, experimented with makeup, and became a popular figure in New York's fashion scene. He and his brother Peter had launched a gender-fluid makeup line with MAC Cosmetics and were known for their fearless style and creativity. Harry's death shocked the fashion community and devastated his family. He had so much talent, potential, and charisma. Stephanie, understandably heartbroken, withdrew from the public eye to grieve. In the years that followed, she revealed that she keeps Harry's memory close to her heart, sometimes wearing his clothes just to feel connected to him. This loss marked a turning point in Stephanie's life. It was a grief no career could soften, no wealth could fix, but it also revealed the strength that had always been inside her. Stephanie didn't disappear. She found a way to keep going, focusing on her surviving children, her marriage, and honoring Harry's legacy. Stephanie Seymour's life has been full of unforgettable chapters: supermodel stardom, rock and roll love, billionaire luxury, messy drama, and heartbreaking loss. Through it all, she's stayed standing. Not perfect, not polished, but real. The kind of woman who can walk a runway, survive the tabloids, raise a family, and carry herself through tragedy with quiet grace. So where is Stephanie Seymour now? After all she has been through, do you think she will continue her career or focus on family and other important stuff? Stephanie Seymour, a model and more even. Till date, Stephanie Seymour's story isn't just about beauty, fame, or fashion. It's about resilience, transformation, and the rare kind of spark that never dims. Not with time, not with age, and not with life's many storms. While she began as a teenage model and quickly rose to become one of the defining faces of the 1990s supermodel era, what makes her journey unforgettable is how she kept coming back, surprising the world with every turn, even when it wasn't expected or allowed by the rules of her industry.
You'll always be a supermodel, Stephanie Seymour. And I know you from back in the day. Like, you were from my generation growing up with the supermodels, the Crawfords, and
By the mid-90s, Stephanie had already walked the biggest runways, graced the most prestigious magazine covers, and become a household name across the world. But fame came at a cost. After years of being in the spotlight, she stepped away from the constant glare, choosing to focus on raising her family. Unlike many who disappear forever after such a decision, Stephanie always left the door slightly open. Every once in a while, she would return, return, not loudly, but powerfully. And every time she did, it felt like she had never left. In 2006, fans got a nostalgic glimpse of her when she appeared in a Gap campaign alongside her sons. It was a sweet, personal nod to her past and present, a supermodel and a mother, balancing both identities with grace. She also took part in editorial projects that celebrated the original supermodel generation, reminding everyone of the timeless allure that made her stand out decades earlier. But the moment that truly shook the fashion world came in 2019. The runway was set for Versace's fall-winter show, and out walked Stephanie, now 50 years old, now in a daring black gown with bold cuts and dramatic flair. It wasn't just a fashion statement, it was a declaration. She owned that runway as fiercely as she did in her 20s, perhaps even more so. The room erupted, and among the many clapping hands, one pair stood out, her mother's, front row and glowing with pride. That walk wasn't just a comeback, it was a celebration of confidence that grows with age. Stephanie's return to modeling didn't stop there. She had moved into business as well, not as a figurehead, but as a creator. In 2014, she became the global face of Estée Lauder, stepping into a role that celebrated mature beauty at a time when youth still dominated beauty campaigns. This move was not only refreshing, but necessary, offering a broader and more inclusive view of beauty. Then, in 2017, she launched her own lingerie brand, Raven and Sparrow. Unlike the typical flashy lines built for display, hers was born from decades of personal experience in front of the camera wearing lingerie. She didn't want it to feel artificial or just for show. Instead, she designed pieces that made women feel elegant and empowered in their own skin. The line had a vintage softness, evoking the quiet glamour of old boudoirs, meant for self-love, not just attraction. Now in her mid-50s, Stephanie lives a quieter life compared to her younger years, but her presence in the fashion world is still felt. She may not be seen on runways every season, but her impact lingers in the confidence of older models strutting their stuff, in the celebration of curves and natural beauty, and in the stories of women who refuse to be shelved just because the industry says it's time. Her journey is full of twists and turns, the whirlwind romances, the tabloid headlines, the painful family moments, and the joyful career highs. She didn't shy away from any of it. Where others might have built a careful, polished image, Stephanie showed the messy parts too. She didn't always play it safe, and that's exactly what made her magnetic. From posing for magazines that stirred controversy to dating people outside the expected celebrity pairings, she moved through life unapologetically. The modern fashion world often feels tightly controlled, images filtered, statements crafted, personalities packaged. Looking back at Stephanie's career is like taking a breath of fresh air. She was bold when bold wasn't safe. She was sensual before it was fashionable. She lived without worrying too much about what others might say. That rare honesty, that rawness, made her unforgettable. Even now, young models and influencers mirror pieces of what Stephanie brought to the scene: confidence, authenticity, and a refusal to be boxed into any one version of beauty. The difference is, she did it when there were no hashtags, no likes, and no controlled narratives, just pure presence. Stephanie Seymour didn't just make a mark in fashion, she changed the way people looked at aging, motherhood, womanhood, and the messy, beautiful ride that is life. Her story reminds us that style doesn't have an age limit. Passion doesn't fade with time, and real icons never disappear. How they evolve. The supermodel who once ruled the glossy pages of fashion magazines continues to inspire, not with perfection, but with a life fully lived. And that, more than any runway walk or photo shoot, is what truly makes her a queen. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.